Video from my April 2017 hike and trip to Joshua Tree National Park. The photo you see in the background here is a wide-angle photo of the Barker Dam, which, in my opinion, was the prettiest of the hikes that I did at Joshua Tree. This was really stunning. Best of all, the red-spotted toads were out and mating. This was really cool to see. There were also a bunch of tadpoles from earlier rounds of breeding that you could see swimming around in the water. The male would grab onto the back of the female, wrapping his arms around her torso, and basically catch a ride as she would swim around the pond. This may be them breeding right here. What he's trying to do is to wait for her to pause and lay a batch of eggs. When she does pause and lay a batch of eggs, because of his positioning, he'll be able to inseminate them. These were just so cool to see. And a friend of mine had been out in this area 2 weeks or so before and hadn't seen any of these red-spotted toads. Apparently, normally during the year, they're mostly nocturnal, and they live in crevices and in burrows, trying to preserve as much moisture as they can. I think these little guys were one of my two favorite things, the other being some chukwalla that I'll show you in a few minutes. Very cool. Here we have a little lizard who's doing a dominance display, little push-ups. His blue throat was striking. I think this is a granite spiny lizard. We saw quite a few in the dam area. This was super cool. I was trying to chase this little guy down, and it was moving throughout the brush. It was really hard to catch. But when I finally got him in position, he started digging for a grub. This is a very cool lizard. I think it's a long-nosed leopard lizard. It moved quite quickly, and there were several of them in various areas. These guys were the other highlight of the trip. These are desert chuckwalla, one of the largest of the lizards that live in Joshua Tree. The chuckwalla are kind of unique in their defense mechanism. When threatened, they'll, do push-ups like some lizards were to show their dominance. And when they've determined that that really isn't working, they'll run into a crack or a crevice. And if you notice in some of these upcoming shots, they're sort of flattened or pancake-like. Here's the dominance display of the push-ups that I was mentioning earlier. But they'll run into a crack and they'll inflate themselves and wedge into the crack. This is probably the coolest footage of the chuckwalla that I got. It's a smaller specimen feeding. Chuckwalla are primarily herbivorous, and it was a real treat to see one out and about, really active and feeding in decent light, somewhat exposed. We had not seen any chuckwalla in any of the locations that we visited until we finally went on the 49 Palms Oasis hike, and we saw 3 or 4, the 2 larger ones that I showed earlier in the video, and this extremely rambunctious juvenile. Absolutely thrilled to get some just great footage of this little guy running around. We also spotted this critter crawling across the path. This is actually the larval form of a sphinx moth. Now, I really hadn't paid much attention to seeing these sphinx moths before, but they are huge. Here's a photo of one that I took in the cactus garden area. You could almost mistake them for a small hummingbird, given their size. You can see they have a long tongue that they stick into a flower to lap up the nectar. This was a very lucky shot that I got on a burst mode with my camera. This little grub was making its way down the hill. I'm trying to get some good focus with my macro lens here, but it's not an easy shot. This was a fantastic trip, and I really look forward to going back.